Hi, I'm Frank from R&R Games, and this is the publisher's perspective, what we're looking for in 2021. And right now, I'm going to introduce Curt from Smirk and Dagger.
Hey, I'm Curt from Smirk and Dagger. I am the owner, and now I'm going to be heading over to Kira.
Hey, I'm Kira. I run a marketing agency working with multiple publishers, some that are on this panel with us, like Ben.
Hi, I'm Ben Harkins, Floodgate Games, and I'm going to hand you off to Shari.
Hi, I'm Shari from Breaking Games, and I'm going to hand you off to Dan.
Hi, Shari. Thank you for that. I'm Dan. I'm from R&R Games, and we're excited to talk about what we're looking for from the publisher's perspective for 2021. So let's kick it off. Curt, tell me a little bit about what you're looking for.
Oh, sure. Start with me.
Okay, thank you, Curt. Very good.
I know. It's almost hard because the trick is you don't know exactly what the world is going to be like in 2021, though we assume it's going to be kind of like it is now. So I can tell you one thing I'm looking less at is I'm looking at less party games, less 6 to 12 player games. It's probably smaller player counts, things you can play solo, a couple. And I always look for casual things, but I would continue to do so. Yeah.
I would say that a lot of people are starting to look at their catalog and what they can add to what they already have out there, so that they're bringing more content to their existing games for players that already have it, and introducing the game to new players, saying, hey, here we've got this game. Maybe they're introducing a new solo mode, like Curt said. If it doesn't already have one, maybe they're expanding on what they already have, like Ben does with the Sagrada expansions. So I think that's a lot of what I'm seeing and what people are expecting heading into the next year.
We're focusing quite a bit on looking for games that are good for couples. A lot of couples are staying at home, playing games together, and not getting together with their normal game groups. So that's been one of the key things I look for, is just a really killer 2-player experience. Still want to be able to scale up. Family's still important, of course, if you have your kids and extended family. But at the core of it for us, 2 players got to be rock solid.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Yeah, we're looking for smaller games as well. Really like a 4-player maximum. Mostly family games that can be played with kids of all ages. So anything maybe 5 to 8 up to 18. Something that really kind of runs the gamut. We've got some that are going to be geared towards people with slightly younger children, and then some that are geared towards people with slightly older children. So that's pretty much what we're looking for. Obviously, we had some great 10-player party games last year, and you just can't have as much fun with those anymore until we have a cure for this pandemic. So we've all, I think, been in a pretty awkward position. No trade shows, less stores. It's been an interesting situation, but the games are still popular, and that's the important thing. People want to play games. We have a lot of hope, and I think our industry is going to do well. We just have to be clever.
We brought up party games and things like that. So I've got a question for everyone here. How much are you looking at your games right now, and how they can translate to something online, whether that's being played through something like Discord here or Skype or Zoom? A lot of people are doing that. How's that impacting your decisions right now?
Not much for us. We're putting a lot of our games online, but we're still looking at games that are just for the family anyway. So strategy games are where we're focusing right now, but we're still looking at party games. We're still putting out party games. Really, it hasn't stopped us at all from what we're looking at.
We can play Time's Up online, right? You don't need to be in the same room to play a game like that.
Many of the games that we have, especially the party games, we played on Zoom, on Discord, and it's worked out fine.
I
think
can say
the
a lot of
online version. Sorry, I think the
No, go
online
ahead.
version is really it's to support the regular version of the game. I think we're all pretty conventional in that we definitely want the game to play at the table. That's the number one priority. It's still got to play well at the table, and then the added bonus is if it really translates well over Zoom or Discord or Tabletop Simulator, that's an added bonus. But I'm not looking for games that are, good in that platform first and maybe not so great at the table. So,
well, so interestingly, it's not necessarily the difference in what games I'm looking for right now that relates to COVID, if I think about it, because the things that I'm going to use for the next year, they're probably already in the queue. So I should really still be looking at games broadly for when we're all back to normal. But I will say that during the design process, during the pitch process, if a designer has a game on Tabletop Simulator that I can get in and play with them now and evaluate when I don't have my regular play groups available as much, that makes a big difference. So I think that's probably, as designers watching this, having your game on one of the digital platforms so we can experience it, that makes a huge difference in our ability to evaluate and jump on board.
For sure.
I was going to say the exact same thing. I've got a small stack of games that are finding a hard time to get to the table, but I've played through quite a few prototypes on Tabletopia and Tabletop Simulator. So if you want us to look at them more quickly, I think you know what to do now. If you can. I've got one game in particular that just doesn't translate. There's not a way to translate it digitally, and it's a cool looking prototype, but we'll see if I can get it to the table.
Yeah.
I had a great pitch on Discord last night, and I won the game. And of course, I love it when I win. It's always a plus if you let your potential publisher win. But and it was great. And I thought, wow, if it's great on Discord, it's going to be great when we play it live. So that got me very excited. And I was, I was really pleased with the way that pitch translated. I have to say that was probably one of the better pitches too. Because Discord, I found
that's
Discord.
a great point. Yeah, I think that's a great point because as gamers, right, we're all, personally, I am sick and tired of playing digitally in tabletop simulator and Tabletopia because it's so fiddly at times, right? And Ben and I were joking about this recently, like, can you imagine in real life if you're trying to grab one card and you grab the whole deck, or you actually pull the whole deck into your hand? Things like that are very frustrating, and it takes away from the game. So if you can you have an experience that's so good, that stuff doesn't matter. A good example for me was the first time I got to play Whistle Mountain was on TTS, and it's got a lot of little fiddly bits in real life too, but it was so good in Tabletop Simulator. All the stuff I kept screwing up didn't matter. So do you think that is going to impact your decisions as well? Are you going to be able to see past the fiddliness of the system that you're using if you're doing it digitally?
In some cases, yes.
I understand the fiddliness of it, and I experienced the fiddliness of it, but that's not what I'm looking for in the prototype, so I just went past it.
I think one of the only tough parts of that has been for some play testing, getting accurate play times, because it's just slower to play through prototypes on Tabletop Simulator or Tabletopia. That we're trying to really zero in the length of a game at different player counts. And so I'm kind of asking testers to record their actual play time, but then also estimate what they think it would be, minus the fiddly extras that come along with the digital.
Yeah, you cannot get an accurate idea of the time from doing it on that.
No.
Do you think there's a benefit when you're getting a pitch from a designer that if they're set up for Tabletop Simulator or Tabletopia, that's great, but would it be beneficial for them to record a play for you guys to just see how it goes without the fiddliness, like with their own home group?
Yeah, I've been several like that were an excellent way to learn about the game, but I always wanted to play it after that, just for my own edification.
Yeah, there's nothing like playing it in real life to really get a feel. And I do miss the playtest groups, and I miss the shows, especially watching people play at shows cold. That was a lot of fun. And I think that you got a really honest appraisal that way. I always called it my grassroots testing because I didn't see how you could get any more grassroots than, here's a game. Let's see how fast you can figure it out and if you have fun. But for sure, the online is a lifesaver. At least we get to play. And so that means a lot that those technologies exist.
There was a game that we looked at just recently that really had a dexterity element to it. So the fact that the designers had recorded a play and sent that video along with their sell sheet was all I needed to really gauge what the game was all about, and therefore I could say, yeah, you know what, that's interesting enough. Why don't you send me the prototype and I can try it with my family? So in a case like that, absolutely a videotape playthrough is going to be superior than a tabletop simulator kind of a thing. But if it's a standard board game, if it's not print and play, then eventually, yeah, if we see it and we want to try it, those platforms are critical now. Even for our internal testing, I had some games in development otherwise that I put up on Tabletop Simulator, so I can actually play with our team more effectively, and that's been a godsend too.
Well, Curt, you've been able to utilize Tabletop Simulator for your recent Kickstarter as well, and using that to actually help show off the game. So there's a lot of uses for this, and also helping promote the game once it's made it past that stage with you guys. But let's maybe take this beyond the COVID barrier for us, because I think there's a lot more, like you guys all alluded to at the beginning of this. There's a lot more to what we're looking for, because a lot of things that are for 2021 are already in development. You're looking at 2022, 2023. What is it that is going to hook you into a game right now, beyond the player count?
For us, it hasn't changed at all. I mean, we're still looking for the same thing. We want it to be fun. We want it to be engaging. We want it to not last forever. And, it doesn't change the parameters of what we're really looking for in any shape or form. I mean, we're always, whether it's family strategy, whether it's party game, doesn't matter. It's the same for us. The difference is that we have to look at these mostly right now online and get the idea from that. And then if we really see something, then I ask for it to come in where we'll test it in-house. But that's all the testing we can do right now.
Yeah, I'm looking for a good end game. The thing I find most satisfying in a game is if it's got a great end game. I mean, the rest of it has to be fun too, but it's almost like when you watch a movie and the ending's no good. I always liken it to other things. We're just looking for the whole experience, and then it sort of has to wrap up well at the end. And that could come in any kind of form, really. It could be a family game, it could be a two-player strategy game, it could be, it could be a party game, but the party games that category is limited right now. I see a lot of conversational games, but strictly speaking, those aren't games. So the ones that really are games would be something that I would be looking for. If it has a great kind of a clever conversational element, that's good. But if it doesn't have a win condition, I'm not really as excited about it. I don't know.
One of my favorite questions to ask after playtesting is, at what point in the game did you know that the winner was going to win? And that for me is like kind of a similar take on caring about the end game, that being climactic and feeling like you just don't know how it's going to end until you get real close. It's always nice to know kind of where you stand relative to other players, particularly if it's a more competitive game. But I really like that question. So maybe that's one designers can ask themselves as they're testing with their friends and family.
When you look at that as more of a balance issue, though, I mean, if they telling you, oh, I knew like 3, 4, or 5 turns before, I would be like worried at that point. I'd be like, oh my god, if you can call it that far back, that's a danger.
Yeah, potentially it could mean game balance, and it could mean that there is runaway leader issues, something like that, or it could just be that the narrative arc of the game or the like arc of winning the game is skewed in some respect. But
either way,
all of those equate to, hey, the ending is not going to be super exciting.
Yep, exactly.
I will say that I have been more critical of late. I've been filtering harder because I think less games are going to get released in a year at this point. And certainly, we were drinking from the fire hose for a while. And I think more care right now is being taken on, does this feel like a game that is actually going to pop, to get recognized? Does it have enough to get noticed? And I think I'm doing a harder look at whether I think it has that potential before greenlighting a project now. Where, a couple of years ago, if I felt strongly about the game, I felt strongly about the game. But now I really, really am looking at the marketing of a game and the potential audience and the bang for the buck that I think will be perceived. So, that's changed things a little bit, I think, this year. Does anyone else feel that way?
Yeah, we've seen some of that for sure. I've definitely been more critical and more hesitant to accept things that I normally would be sure. Let's try it. Just because I don't want to put out a lot of stuff in this climate. I want to be very specific, put something out that I think will work in this climate and will succeed.
Yeah, nobody wants to be sitting on a bunch of inventory right now, right? So I think a lot of people are looking to cut out the bloat and really focus on making the best games right now, which is going to be good for the whole industry. So your game is really going to have to shine. So what are some things that you guys are like, what are things that have stuck out to you when you're looking at a game that really bring it to that, okay, I'm ready to bring other people in and have a look at this and see if this is a fit for me?
Guys, I'm just going to turn my camera off for now because it keeps flashing. I don't know if you're seeing that, but it's really annoying. Yeah.
For us, it's always the fun factor. It's literally serious, look at, is this a fun game? Is this engaging? Is this going to keep my attention? Will it, play in a reasonable amount of time and keep everyone engaged? Then we look at the balance. Is it a balanced game? Does everyone have a chance to win? Does it matter if you're winning in a party game? Who cares? Sometimes if you're just laughing so hard, it doesn't matter. But there's a lot. None of those parameters have really changed. It's just that we're spending more time on the development end now because we have the time. We're not traveling to all these shows, so we're spending it developing and really fine tuning. We had a game that was going to come out in February this year, then March. We pushed it all the way back to January of 2021. Just because we could make it all the more beautiful, make it even tighter, make it more perfect. So, I like putting a lot more effort in like this. It's been pretty good.
Yeah, I'm tending to get a little more discerning about. Oh, I'm sorry, Shari. I think
no, go ahead. Sorry.
We're colliding on the internet. I like to think a lot about the network effect that can happen with a game where one group of people gets together and plays the game, and then how much impact is there on, let's say, the 3 or 4 people who came to the game that was brought by the 4th, and then how much do they want to go on and say, I want to pick that up and bring it to some other group of people? Maybe that's home to play with their significant other, or maybe that's to another game group that they're a part of, because the more effective that is, the more it's likely to propagate. And I promise I'm not trying to sneak coronavirus references into the gaming philosophy here, but I think that's really important for how information gets communicated. And if that experience is fun, that can be great. And if that's like satisfying enough, it kind of dies there and then it doesn't spread. But if you want to become an advocate for that game, going and getting it and sharing it with other people, that's the thing that really spreads it.
So do you think there are some games that do that better than others? Like you would evaluate them differently now than before? Or I guess I'm not sure where you're driving.
I would personally, I don't know if it's different globally or anything. Like contextually, it may not be different, but it's just something I'm paying a little more attention to.
Okay.
And looking for that particular aspect of how do people react to this when they're playing, and asking like, do you know someone who you'd like to show this game to, or is it like, hey, that was good enough, and I feel like I had a good time and I'm done with it, or do I need more? Do I need to like get this and play it again, potentially with another group?
Yeah, because I think
it's great that we're not.
I was just going to say Go ahead.
You first. No, you first.
I was going to say that that's always been kind of one of my barometers that I tend to share with designers as well. Before you start pitching it to a publisher, make sure it's already got enough kind of marketing momentum to it. So if you sit down at a test with people you don't know, and at least one of them doesn't spontaneously, without you asking, say, oh my God, when is this coming out? Like, that's how you know it's ready to pitch a publisher, because it has that pass along. Or they're like, oh my God, guys, come and take a look at this. And then they explain the thing that they got excited about. Those are reasons to pay attention to a game. And that's when you want to show it to a publisher, because that is the same thing we're going to be looking at when we evaluate, because we know without that reaction, the chance of it really being a hit is far less than, then you're right. It's like, well, it's a good game, but is it going to be a game that sells?
So we've got a question for Frank that I see in the chat. So I'm going to throw it out there. Frank, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Something you had said a moment ago. Are you suggesting that COVID-19 could have a silver lining for game development?
Without a doubt, there's a silver lining. I mean, let's look at it this way. It's a terrible predicament. It's a horrible thing that's going on. And I hope to God that it literally ends as soon as possible. But that said, we can't complain too much because sales are still good. People have been able to buy things online. Development has increased immensely for us because we're not going to every show to market all these games because there are no shows. So we've been taking that time and putting it back into the development, which has made the next set of games that's coming out from us all the much better. I mean, they were here and now they're up here. So I think there is a silver lining. Do I want to have this situation? Absolutely not. I prefer the norm, but we can't complain.
That's
You're a
great.
glass is half full kind of guy, and that is how I try to be. When we stopped right after Toy Fair, I told the team we're not going to go to shows for 2 years, and during that time, this way nobody can complain how tired they are, and we can't. We're not getting those weeks off now after the shows because every time they worked a show, they would get a day off. And we really got a lot more done, just like you said, development-wise. And we did put things off and push them back because there was no show to have to get the thing ready for. And
Right.
so now we get to, spend a lot more time making the game a lot better. And but the launches are different, right? So, to just kind of reiterate with what Curt said, if your game gets really super great reactions and people are super excited about it, then you pitch it. But if it's just kind of mediocre and, you don't have a realistic view of what it is, we can't afford to print a mediocre game right now. I mean, we never could, but now it's even worse. We need great games, and there are enough great games to go around. There's no doubt about it, but not every game that you create is going to be a great game.
So for those of you, for those that are just tuning in, we've got a couple of questions just so people know who we are again. We've got a number of people wondering which companies we're all with. Obviously, Curt makes it really easy with Smirk and Dagger behind him, and Frank with his logo. So do you guys want to reintroduce just real quick, since we're about at the halfway point, who we're all with?
Shari, Breaking Games.
Dan from R&R Games.
I'm Ben Harkins, Floodgate Games. Sorry for not making it obvious for everyone. I should put something
I'm
here.
not doing any better. I'm Kira with Off Duty Ninja, marketing agency that works with several publishers, including Smirk and Dagger, Floodgate Games, Indie Boards and Cards, and Stronghold. I just see a couple other games behind me here, all on my shelves. So I'm doing my best to try and pull some questions in from everybody. But we have been talking about how COVID's been impacting our decisions and how we play test and get to see games. And really not so much about 2021, because we're thinking about games further out than that for those of you just tuning in. So please be sure you're throwing your questions in the stream chat, and I'll do my best to throw them to the group.
And I'll point out that we are thinking about 2021 over here, because we just keep pumping out the games. It's just on a slower, we're doing it more slowly because we don't have to put things out in time for a show. And we have that time to take to make it all the better. So, we get a lot of development done this way. It's been interesting, to say the least.
Yeah.
Well, plus there's real issues in Asia right now that affect when we get our product. So you can't rely upon the schedules that we've all become accustomed to. So, the pandemic is affecting all walks of life, and certainly in production in Asia to get the product here on time, it's been a huge challenge for us.
That's a good point with fulfillment of Kickstarters too. We have our own warehouse, and I used to be able to hire 30 temps at a time if I had a massive Kickstarter to get out, and now I can't. We're not bringing that many outside people. We bring in people very slowly. We have a very respectable, and respectful team. So of each other, they're used to working together. They stay apart, but they trust that each other is taking care of themselves. And so we're really not able to introduce outside temps into the warehouse on a regular basis anymore. And it slowed down the Kickstarter. So people have to be, understanding, and you also have to think about, if you're going to kickstart your game, add a lot of extra time and make sure you talk to the fulfillment center and say, listen, if it comes in a month late, because you want to estimate it's going to be late because everything's late. It's hard to book ships. It's hard to book planes. It's hard to get the plants to commit to dates. It used to be a 30-day turnaround. Now it's 90. There's just a lot of stuff going on. So not the least of which is the warehouses. And in New Jersey now we have new regulations, and we just have to be really, really careful. So
we've got Brexit right around the corner too, which is going to impact all kinds of fun stuff as well. So here's a fun question for you guys. What types of mechanics are you sick of? You'd feel like, oh, not another of when they get in front of you right now. What are you avoiding? Go for it, Dan.
The apples to apples mechanic.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
If I see another one of those, it's just, I'm so over it.
I'm
Anybody
also
else?
I'm a little weary of roll and writes unless the roll and write has some kind of component that makes me feel like I need to make this purchase. I just can't print off a white paper sheet and use regular dice, because I just don't understand what the value of that purchase is. But then there's Jeff's game, which is the pinball, the Super Arcade pinball, which I thought was a great roll and write. So there are always exceptions though. So that's the thing.
That's one of the best roll and writes I've ever played. What'd you say?
A lot of the
I said few because we just released one, the Rogers Laganji's roll and write. But it's got cool stuff. So.
Yeah, see? There you go.
There you go. Ben?
A lot of the roll and writes I've been seeing tend to still fall into this like multiplayer solitaire trap that roll and writes tend to have very prominently for some odd reason. Avoid that. I don't know. That's just not. It's been done a lot.
How can you do player interaction and roll and write? Let's see that, right?
Well, I mean,
Not been done well
cartographers.
yet.
Cartographers does it fairly well. Like that's a like don't do that again, but like do something else, right? That kind of achieves that same goal of, hey, I'm playing a game with my friends. I should be interacting with them in some way, right?
Yeah.
So we released Sparkle Kingdom Online, which is sort of like a flip and write. It's not a roll and write, but you flip the card and write. And so what the team did with that, I thought was really clever, because we couldn't do we couldn't, strictly speaking, play Sparkle Kitty the same way online. So we had to make it a flip and write. And so everybody prints out a sheet and does play. And it does have a little solitary aspect, but the game was created so that there's more interaction between the players. And there's still that like table talk that goes on. And it's actually really, really cool. I think it's one of the ones that was done well. And interestingly enough, it was made for COVID. Derivative of one of our other games, but still. And so I thought that was done really well. But in general, I get what you mean about the roll and writes. And I also am really tired of games that have a lot of dice. A lot of dice drives me crazy, because I can never get the price down where it needs
Sherry,
to be.
what if they're pretty dice? What if they're pretty dice, though?
Well, pretty dice I love, and I'll buy them for me. I just don't want to, not going to make any money on them. But yeah, I collect a lot of pretty dice.
How much is too many?
I don't know, 30. Too many.
Bring your games with lots of dice to me. I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Hey, bring your games with
Ben's got you covered.
Now, let's be clear. R&R Games likes pretty dice, too.
So
You
does
have
Curt.
dice.
He just had some gorgeous metal
We'll make
dice.
them
And
pretty,
his
okay? If you
latest.
have dice, don't worry about your dice. We'll make them pretty for you.
You go to them with the dice.
Okay, so Sherry, I've got a question for you from earlier. You had mentioned playing a pitch online. What made that pitch so good for you, other than being able to win?
Yeah, I mean, I did win, but what made it so much fun was it was a very shallow learning curve. It wasn't a very steep learning curve. Once you got into it, it really was pretty intuitive and fun. There was a lot of, I like to call it shit talk, but I mean, there's really a lot of great table talk, a lot of back and forth. And then the end round was just really a lot of fun. I had a blast in it. So what made it really good was the overall experience was fun. I was tired and I really didn't want to do it. And so the sign of a good game is once you get into it, you're so glad you played it and you enjoyed it so much, even though when you might have been tired when you started. So I think that a game take you from a place of being tired to having a great time and then being super pumped about it it's really, that's a hard thing to achieve, especially late at night for me, and they achieved that.
Curt?
I had pitched a game that I really got into because the designers had done such an amazing job of taking the theme and blending it into the mechanics so that you couldn't layer another theme on top of this game. It had worker placement, it had engine building, but the way that they put those mechanics together, linked to the theme, made that you couldn't separate them. If you weren't going to play this game as the game it was, it just wouldn't be the same. And that's what I really, when I have a game that the mechanics and the theme lock together like that, that's when I get excited about a game, quite honestly.
And that's a rarity.
Yeah.
That's a real rarity.
Brings up two really good points from both of you. So I'll start with the one that Sherry brought to attention, and that is barrier to entry. So how much of that is a factor right now in how you're looking at games, not only from the learning curve, but also from your production of the game and what it's going to cost to manufacture it? Anyone?
I'm not sure the two are directly related, but because you can have a steep learning curve in a game that is not that expensive to make. I've had that happen, but I'm just the type of person who is a casual gamer, unless I really get involved in a really deep game, which is happened. Obviously, we printed Dwellings of Eldervale, and I played it before we did it.
It's a wonderful game.
That was a monument. I don't know what else you'd call it, but yeah, it was a huge achievement. But in general, the kind of game I'll like is something that I can learn pretty quickly, but that still has enough strategy to keep people interested. So it means a lot to me. And the other thing is, we do a lot of work on rules. We, designers come to us, and the rules are always needy, and I'm always the one with the questions. I have a lot of questions about rules, so I have fear of rules and always have. And so I think a lot of people come to the table with a fear of the rules, and we try to make them as simple as possible. And if it's impossible to manage the rules, there's a problem. There's a problem with the game in general. So that's just one observation that I have.
Anyone else?
I look at the learning curve as a sort of percentage of the overall experience you're going to have with the game. And that may be one session, that may be playing multiple times. Like if you're going to sit down and play a campaign game, like it taking you an hour and a half to learn or teach or whatever, that's pretty acceptable. If you're going to get whatever 15 hours of play out of it, that's not nearly as bad as if it takes you an hour and a half to learn a 10-minute game, which sounds absolutely awful. So I think it's not just the raw amount of time it takes to learn, but it's what percent of your total experience is that going to be. I look at that for scoring too. I have a game that's like got tabled because it was a 20-minute game that took 10 minutes afterward to score, and that's just ridiculous. Like, it is super fun, but like we had to fix that because it's just so we're working on it. But that's another. It's kind of more of the same to look at is like how much those sort of bookkeeping, accounting aspects are a part of the overall experience.
That's good.
Awesome. Anyone else? All right, we'll move on to the next question that kind of combos into this. And I'm not sure how many of you have experience with TRPGs and rulebooks around those, but we do have somebody curious what your perspective is. How would your considerations change when it comes? You brought up rulebooks, so how would your considerations change if you can at least, if you're not a TRPG person, maybe talk about just how the rulebook in general and how your considerations change around that?
Well, I'd like to see who's going to answer this question from this group.
I'll answer it. It's basically TRPG. Basically, it's not something we look at, but the rule book aspect is the same no matter what. I don't expect your rules to be perfect. I expect to understand. I need to be able to understand them. I need to be able to play the game from them. But I can tell you right now that what you give me is never going to be what the end result is in 95% of what I get. I have to edit those down and make them clear and rewrite them all the time. And so it's not a big expectation for me to see something that's perfect. And I have seen a couple games that have been virtually perfect, but it's so rare. Most of them, they need a lot of work.
That's a great point.
But it isn't daunting. It's not daunting.
Yeah,
it's because
for sure.
the designer understands the game so well, they forget what it's like to not know anything about it. So it's hard to start at the beginning when you're already at the end. So that when I come into a game, I'm coming in cold, and other people in my company who are great at rules. And I'm always the one who says, well, I don't, why didn't you put that in the beginning? I'm here, I'm so confused, and I'm the first one to get confused. So I find rules to be a challenge, but when they're well done at the end, it's a huge source of satisfaction. Except when I get those calls at night and somebody says, "Can you just clarify this? Can you clarify this one thing?" If I give games to friends and they're unclear on them, I'm going to get that phone call 9:00 at night or 10:00 at night when they're trying to clarify rules, which I think is.
And it is one of the hardest things is writing the clear rules to make it so that everybody understands. It's not an easy task. You can rewrite it over and over again and still find mistakes. It's really hard to do.
It's so hard now too, because we used to be able to just pass them off to groups, and now we really can't. So I don't, I'd love to know how you guys are play testing. I mean, do you have big families? Do you have people coming in the office? No, just you. Pretty,
No, I'm
online.
I'm doing all online.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And interesting. Back to the rules just a second. I learned something not too long ago that kind of changed one of the ways in which I edit rules. I learned from someone about East Coast and West Coast bias in terms of how they process rules. And originally, a programmer who writes books that are educational on how to learn a program. So it's all still very technical writing. They said that the East Coast, they want I do this and I do this and I do this. It's more of a sequence is how their brains tend to work more on the East Coast. The West Coast wants to know a lot of the rationale. Why am I doing this right now? And if you write for both of those with enough little pieces that you put out to make both of those kind of processing folks happy and tracking, that actually makes your rule book a lot better. So that was something interesting.
Yeah.
I never heard that before. That's definitely true, though. So I'm like that. And we were writing with people from the West Coast, and they are way more interested in reasoning. And I just want methodology. I'll figure out the reasoning later. I just want to know what the rules are. That's a great point.
That's funny because I'm both ways. I literally have always written it to do both the straight methodology and here's the reasoning why this all works. So I've actually accidentally done that without knowing it.
So interesting.
It never works out this perfectly, but I try to kind of layer in like a zooming style where it's like I'll start at a higher level and give you your objective and kind of how you get there in a really rough way, right? Like you're going to be generally doing this in order to try and do that and get there to win. And then you kind of peel back a layer and you start to give more detail and get a little more procedural. And then you do it sort of one more time, digging into all the exceptions and then visual examples of all of that and try to blend them together. But I'm making it sound like way more fantastic than it actually ends up being. That's
a journalist point of view, right? Yeah.
Well, so we've got a question here, and I think we touched on it a little bit, but I'm gonna try and expand on their question to take it a little further for us. So, have there been any studies to find out what effect COVID-19 has on the board game market, considering most games are still available via mail order? Well, to this end, I think in general, we just haven't had really time to have that kind of case study happen because everything is still in progress, right? I think from a general perspective, we can all say that games are selling, right? So the impact is how are they getting their games? We're seeing Kickstarter still having a lot of success. Retailers are coming back, but we do see a lot of people buying online because they don't want to go into stores. So how is that impacting your decisions in what games you're looking at? Are you looking at more family-oriented games these days because of the Amazon factor and such?
Again, that doesn't change anything for us. It's always family games for us. So
we have
a heavier.
Frank, we're not going to ask any more questions.
It's a heavier focus.
Everyone,
for us
nothing changes. R&R wants fun.
Right.
Give them fun.
Yeah. I mean, it literally hasn't changed a lot for us. What's changed is what's going on in the background. That's really the big change. When you can't focus on certain things, you focus on other things.
Awesome.
It's, I think, changed the way I look at our release schedule right now. So we have prioritized games that we think will do well on Kickstarter because there's one, without the advent of conventions, without the traditional means that we get out there and really push and promote a game, Kickstarter remains one of the best ways to promote a game right now, and it is direct to consumers. Now, that said, it's also one of the best ways that retailers are recognizing titles that are going to pop, because as retailers have had to cut back what they're ordering, they are tend to be ordering games that historically have already done well for them, that they know are going to sell. It's harder for them to take a chance on a new unknown game. Even more so now than just without COVID. So if they see something that really pops on Kickstarter, they know, oh, okay, that's probably going to have a built-in audience that I can now sell to through our store as well. So I'm looking for things that have that I'm going to be doing in the next 6, 8, 10 months that have more viability in that environment. Now, that doesn't change the fact that I'll still be looking at games that may not have that potential that I'll then follow when, in 22 or something like that. But so it's more how I look at releases, not how I look at games I might take in.
Anyone else want to chime in on that before I go to the next question? I think it was a great answer. So we have somebody here asking about themes that you're tired of seeing, but I'm going to kind of go a little bit further and ask you also, how much is theme important when you're looking at a prototype?
Very, very important.
Very, very.
See, to us, it isn't. To us, it's like it's cool to have a good theme, and a really popping theme is great. But if you have a great game and a bad theme, we'll fix it. We'll find the right theme for it. It never worries me. Just be patient. Just finding the right theme take a while.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm with Frank. I think I'm either way. If you bring it and it's a good combination, awesome. Right. You've made my job much easier. But if you come to me with a game, you need to be able to be willing to let go of the theme, right? I want to be able to say, you know what, this is a great game, but this is a better theme for it. I want to paste this on top of the mechanics you brought to me. Anyone else feel that way?
I can literally tell you there was a game that came to us a couple of years ago, and the theme was okay. It was fine, but I knew it could be better. And we searched and searched, and we went through 4 iterations of different themes until we found the one that actually matched with what was going on in that game. And thank God we had the time to do it this year, because it took forever. It was a lot of testing, and we had to just try again and again because we think we get it. And then we were like, it still doesn't quite mesh. We got to get it right. And we got it right.
Absolutely. It can take years. You can have a great mechanic. I had a great strategy mechanic. It was one of the first games I signed. We just released it this year. It's called Something Wicked. But it started out as bar stirs and shot glasses. And then my team turned it into a cauldron with wands and beautiful witches and stuff on it. So awesome. Something Wicked actually turned into a great theme, but the strategy, it's still the same. It remained intact. It was just impossible. It took so long to come up with a theme that was good enough for that brilliant strategy. It was so brilliant. And the designers didn't have anything that was going to sell the game. It just wasn't going to sell. But I loved it. And I kept saying, be patient. We'll come up with the theme. And we tried. We came up with 2 themes. And then finally, I think the third one was the winner. But it took a long time. And designers are not patient people.
No. That's true. You guys are all listening. You know who you are.
I don't blame them. I don't blame them.
Thanks, guys. So real quick, as we start to wrap up here, we've got about 10 minutes left. To Ben and Curt, our theme fans, what themes are you sick of seeing that you just do not want to see? Are you willing to even, say, zombies have been done 1,000 times? Are you still willing to see those themes?
Yeah, I am, but I'm just way more interested in digging in and learning about something that's new and novel and interesting. And that just makes the project way more engaging for me as a publisher. This is a thing I'm going to be staring at for a while and thinking about a lot. And So keeping that interesting is and fresh is really, really cool for me. And I think that's part of what we go for with a lot of our games is themes that are relatable, that tie into real life experiences, so that you kind of have this 2-directional life experience from the game to real life and vice versa. So that's much more a floodgate thing than I want to project out to other publishers by any means. But for me, it kind of drives from that personal interest in working on the game, but also just our strategy of trying to tie into real life.
Right on.
My answer is going to be similar in some aspects. I very much get excited with games that are so immersive that the mechanics almost fall away, and you feel like you're actually in the theme, doing the things that we're talking about doing, rather than optimizing points. So when you drive in and you touch someone emotionally, they react like that's not a cube, that's a dog that might die. Like that's when I get interested, is when you get emotionally swept up in a game. But are there themes that I tend to shy away from? You mentioned zombies. Yeah, I got burned on zombies once when I came too late to the show. So yeah, I don't know that I would do a zombie game right now, but that's not. You could still show me that game, and that's where I might tweak a theme. Yeah, they don't have to be zombies. They could be aliens approaching.
Would they be dead dogs, Curt?
They would be dead dogs.
Okay.
And then you got me.
I say all the time I'm sick of zombie games, but literally right before we started this panel, I was live streaming Zombie Teens, and I love those games. They're phenomenal. And so I think if the game is good, the theme isn't going to be that big of a deal. So I wouldn't shy away from a theme, but just as a designer, be open to getting a different theme in order to get your game published, right? So we're wrapping up here. We've got about 8 minutes left. Any final thoughts that you want to share? I'm going to go around the horn so we don't talk over each other. Ben.
Stay in it. If you're designing games, just keep at it. I've heard from a lot of designers that right now has been really tough for you guys from an inspiration standpoint, and feeling disconnected from your normal gaming groups and the people that you ideate with. I've heard this story a saddening number of times. So just stick with it, and we're ready to check out your cool stuff when you have it. And we'll all get through this as a community, but please keep at it and find your ways to adapt and keep your creative juices flowing in this tough time.
Great. That's a great piece of feedback. Curt.
I'll touch back to something I said early, to say that make sure when you are pitching a game that it's ready to be pitched. Put your best foot forward. Make sure that you've got gamers who don't know you that are excited not just to play, but they want the game. You've already created desire to own. And once you have done that consistently with people you don't know, then it's time to show us. Otherwise, it's too early, and you need to hit that threshold first.
Dan.
I want you to show me something different. I want something that there isn't a lot out there. And I want to see something different. I just so many times we see things that have been published and you've just packaged them differently. Show me something unique.
It's great feedback. Frank.
I would say from the design standpoint, design to your passion. Find something that you're passionate about, design to that. You will come out with an incredible game because you're so involved in it and you're so with it and so perfectly attuned to it. That's really a big help for most designs. And, it doesn't have to be perfect, because in the end, we'll help you.
Shari.
I agree 100%. You've got to be super excited about it. You have to have a love for what you're doing. And if you really love what you're doing and you believe in what you're doing, the odds are that excitement is going to catch on for us as well.
So I'll add a few things to that. I'd say to the point of being ready to bring your prototype to be seen, make sure that you have a really nice sell sheet ready with your marketing points that are the important 3 things about the game, because that is your quick pitch, right? That's the sell sheet is what's going to get them to look at your game in the first place. I'd also say be ready to kill your darlings. Like I said, if your theme isn't right, but your game is good, be okay with being open to something else coming on, and be sure to have some thick skin, because like they say in sales, you got to get a lot of no's to get the yes. So just don't get discouraged, like Ben said, and keep at it. There's a lot of people out there that are willing to even just look at your game and give you some feedback. But again, don't bring something that's in its first couple of months of iterations. There's really great resources out there for everyone online. If you look up Playtesting Journal, there's this really wonderful one that has all the stuff in it you need for tracking. It's one of the first ones that comes up on Google. So if you're new to this, I highly recommend. Playtesting notes are so important because it allows you to go back in time and see what that change was that maybe screwed things up or made things better, so that you can, fix and function and all those fun things that you want to do to make your game the best it can be. Get a lot of playtests out there, get to know Tabletopia and TTS. If you don't know, reach out to the different communities out there. There's a lot of groups on Discord and Facebook, etc., Twitter. There are people that do this and they want to help bring your games to life, and they will help you get it online if it's not something that you're comfortable doing yourself. So I think, and the Fail Faster Playtest Journal is another one somebody just mentioned in the comments. I actually have it on my shelf back here as well. It's a great physical journal, but if you're more of a digital person, there's a really great resource online as well. So with that, I think that's our panel, guys. Thanks so much for being here with us. We really appreciate you, and we hope to see your games very soon. Bye.